Inside Carbondale. This is the podcast that brings you the latest information about projects and events going on in Carbondale. I'm Amy Fox, the city's public relations officer, and I'm joined by Dr. Novotny Lawrence, Associate Professor of Race, Media, and Popular Culture in Radio, TV, and Digital Media Department at SIU. Thank you so much for joining me.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
February is Black History Month, which celebrates the past and present achievements of African Americans, both near and far. Dr. Lawrence, why is Black History Month so important to you?
It's important for any number of reasons. I'll try to keep it short, though. But I think first and foremost, I learned really kind of later in life how, when I was, going through school at all levels, that I really wasn't learning a lot about people who looked like me. And it wasn't that those stories were never there, but it was kind of the same stories, the ones that make us, tend to make us feel good. And the African-American experience in this country is certainly about celebration and overcoming and accomplishment, but it's also about pain and suffering and things like that have gone on that have led us to this moment in which we live right now. And so for me, when I started learning about those rich histories, that became very important to me to be able to share that with other people. And so I think that's why Black History Month is so important, because it's a time for us to be able to highlight those and elevate their status even more. But it doesn't mean that we should just only do it in February either. And then on a personal note, this year's month, Black History Month, is a little bit more important because the theme is African Americans in times of war. My dad is actually a veteran who fought in 2 wars. He was in Vietnam, and then later he was in the Persian Gulf War. And so that we are honoring, the military, as well as other ways in which African Americans have been involved in war is really important to me as well.
Why is it so important to educate people, no matter their background, about this rich history with African Americans?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important because it has an impact on all of us. I would say just like narratives and historical events about World War II has a profound impact on me and other people living in this country, so too does Black history. It's all a part of American history. Even though we say it's Black history, that doesn't mean it's just for Black people. What the African American experience or learning about Black history is really about is learning a complete history of the country in which you live. And if you do that, one, you're just going to be a much more educated and informed person, which I think we should all strive to be in this world. But at the same time, you're going to have a better understanding of where you live, because just because we position things or they're historical, it doesn't mean that they don't continue to resonate today. Because many of the same kinds of struggles which African Americans were facing, say, during the Civil Rights Movement, they continue today. And so maybe if you've really gone back, you've looked at your history, you understand how this nation has evolved and the role that African Americans have played, or the inequity that they've faced, maybe you'll start to understand some of the current protests or situations that or ways in which people are still struggling to try to overcome to achieve equity.
How does SIU plan to raise awareness about Black history during the month of February?
Yeah, that's a great question, that has a lot of answers because we have so many events, and I should say we because I'm actually on the Black History Month Planning Committee. And we've come up with a really great calendar this year. First and foremost, there's the Black History Month kickoff on February 1st. There's going to be the keynote speaker, a guest speaker, Dr. Wesley McNeese, who is the Executive Director of Diversity Initiatives at SIU. So he'll be speaking, and then in addition to that, you're going to hear from Voices of Inspiration, which is a singing group at SIU, as well as a student named Simba the Poet, who is going to deliver some spoken word about the African American experience. And so it's going to be a celebration of sorts to start off the month. And so I would say anyone mildly interested should come to that event, because I think that'll make you want to keep coming back for more. In addition to that, there are going to be some other things, film screenings. We're going to do the film Glory. We're also going to have a former Black Panther named Reggie Brown, who will be here, who has written an autobiography about his experiences as a Black Panther living here in Carbondale. He actually started a breakfast program on the Northeast Side, fed hundreds of kids, and he's going to talk about that. And then in addition, he's also going to talk about the importance of making good decisions in your advocacy work as well, because he had, an interesting ride, to say the least. And so we have any number of events that I'm hoping people will turn out to.
Are there reoccurring themes and messages that you're hoping get addressed during all of these activities?
I think that, not only do we have the theme, African Americans in time of war, but I think all of this has to ultimately be about, I would say, 3 things. And certainly there are more, so I don't want to leave anything out. But when I think about Black History Month, I always think about achievement, struggle, and equity. Like, those are the themes. And I think in all the ways in which the calendar, all the events, that we've arranged on the calendar are going to address those things in some way. And in some ways, they're going to make you feel really good. And you're going to see that, boy, despite tremendous odds and discrimination, African Americans were able to overcome. And in other ways, you're going to see that, boy, we're still fighting a lot of fights today, too. And so in that regard, I think that it's going to be really good for people because it will hopefully lead them to think about some things differently.
In addition to the students, why should people in the community participate in these events?
Because, as I said earlier, they're about all of us, and that's not just, it's not exclusive to the people at the university, nor the people in the community. We have a symbiotic relationship. And I think that, events like this, as well as any other kinds of celebrations or recognitions, whatever we have on campus or in the city, I think if we go back and forth between the two, that we learn more about each other and we foster a stronger symbiotic relationship, because Carbondale needs a university and the university certainly needs Carbondale. And so I think that that's why it's so incredibly important for people from the community to attend.
And obviously you've played a really vital role in planning all of these activities for the 2018 Black History Month at SIU. What are you hoping the reaction is from everyone involved?
I'm hoping that people walk away, as I said, feeling educated, and with that understanding that we're talking about this in February, but again, we're not saying this isn't important for the other 11 months throughout the year. As I've said before, Black history is American history. And so I really want people to understand that, this is great, but let's not treat it like Christmas. Like this is the time where you put up your pictures of Will Smith and Oprah Winfrey and then take them down at the end of the month, and you don't think about this anymore. I want people to walk away feeling more enlightened, more intelligent, to have a better understanding of what is going on in this country, what has occurred versus what is also happening now, and knowing that it's okay to continue these discussions and reading and thinking about these things all the time, because to do anything less is a disservice to yourself. And so that's really what I'd like for people to take away from this.
Lots of things going on. How can people learn more information about all these activities and events going on in February?
Well, I would suggest, first of all, I hope they listen to this podcast. But if they don't, or if they do, or they still want more, or just looking, or whatever it is, I would suggest go to the Student Multicultural Resource Center webpage at the university, and the Black History Month calendar is there. Not only is the calendar there, but there's also a nice, concise kind of overview of how we ended up with Black History Month. Its beginnings as Black History Week, so on and so forth, to just tell you a little bit about how we got here. And I think that's the best way to learn about these things.
And these aren't the only events you put on every single year. You have other events that go on 12 months a year.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're always doing things, whether we're talking about panel discussions, film screenings. We have lecture series at the universities. We're always working to promote African American histories, and certainly as they intersect with other things too. So whether we're talking about the struggle for gender equality, whether we're talking about LGBTQ communities, all these things intersect as well. And so we are always doing things to highlight the struggles and, again, the accomplishment, the achievements, whatever we want to call it, but to just create a more informed body of citizens. Because, again, we are all interdependent beings and we need one another. And so our hope is always that by virtue of attending these things and putting these things, participating, that we're going to make the world just a little bit better than it was, say, when maybe I arrived in it.
And any other things you'd like to add? Maybe I forgot to ask you?
I don't think so. I would just want to slightly beg people to attend, pay attention, and come out, support the events, because not necessarily because of the work that goes into putting them on. I think we're always happy to do the work, but just because I really do think that it will be enjoyable, it will be enriching, it will be enlightening, and I think that certainly there's a lot to be learned, and it can continue to spark that interest in people.
One thing I do want to point out, most of these events are free of charge or very, very low cost. So there really shouldn't be a reason why people can't come.
Absolutely, yeah. If you have the time, turn out, we're not asking for a lot of money. This is a service that we're putting on, so to speak, because it's that important. So yeah, if you have nothing to do, please come and attend an event. Come hear Reggie Brown. Go watch the film Glory and listen to the Q&A afterwards, because that's the beauty of it. You go see a film and you don't just walk out. You get to hear perspectives from an academic, talk about it, and join the conversation. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's because of my position in academia, but for me, you just can't get much better than that.
Great. Well, lots of good information. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And I hope all of you will join us next time for another episode of Inside Carbondale. Have a great day. If you have feedback or have ideas for future podcasts, feel free to email me at afox@explorecarbondale.com.